Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we put the business back in lady business. Hosted by Jennifer Justice, founder and CEO of the Justice Department, a management strategy and law firm that works with female and woke male entrepreneurs, executives, talent, brands, and creatives to build and maximize their wealth, focusing in the areas of tech, consumer product, finance, media, entertainment, and fashion. Jennifer interviews entrepreneurial women who have done it all, who will be sharing their secrets on all things business, especially as a woman. These highly successful women will share strategies and insights, including what not to do and what it takes to win. And now, here's your host, Jennifer Justice.
Hi, this is JJ, the host of this podcast, Taking Care of Lady Business. If you're here, you know my passion for making women rich. Did you know that men are 4 times more likely than women to negotiate their compensation packages? And that women are leaving about $1.5 million on the table by the time they're 60 by not negotiating? That's a lot of money, and I want it to stop. So I'm launching a course called Be the Boss of Your Career to show you how to get what you deserve. Our first live session is May 3rd, so go to www.thejusticedept.com to sign up for more information. I look forward to seeing you there and helping you get rich. Thanks to MedJet for supporting the Lady Business podcast. If you're hospitalized or your security is threatened while traveling, they can get you home. I'm a MedJet member and have been for years. Everyone who travels should be. Enroll before your next trip at medjet.com. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today, we have the gorgeous and smart and spicy and fun, all of those things. Umindi Frances, she's the CEO and founder of Umindi Frances Consulting Group, also known as UFCG. Hi, Umindi, how are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for the lovely introduction, JJ. I can say all the same things about you, especially spicy and brilliant.
I love it. Spicy is like it's one of my favorite words. It's like
Mine too.
yeah, it used to be like sassy, but it sounds too like, young girl, and it's like spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely spicy.
Well, thank you for coming on today. I know, I can't wait to get into your spiciness in here. I'm happy to have you on here.
Yes, let's get down to lady business.
Let's get down to lady business. I just want to start first by saying, what you do, and then let's get into how you got there.
Yeah. Today, I'm a management consultant and I run a global consulting firm, which you just introduced, UFCG, and we represent brands and thought leaders across 6 continents. Our expertise is really in developing consumer brands across a bevy of categories, which can be anything from tech to fashion, beauty, now AI, Web3, things of those natures, art and design, et cetera, entertainment, media.
And so when you say that you represent them, what exactly does that mean for people who are like starting their companies and not sure who they need to hire, et cetera? I find it useful to like go into detail for them to be like, okay, this is the person I need to hire. And then we'll go into when people should be hiring.
Yeah. I think the best way I describe it is, for example, you have a founder, someone who's, founded a company, or a C-suite team, whether that's, CEO, COO, CFO, and they're looking for someone to work alongside them to fill in the gaps. And that's essentially what my team and I do. We fill in the gaps. My background is in investment banking and also marketing. I've worked for some of the best, conglomerates in the world, LVMH and Kering, and then consulted for many years for similar brands. And so I use that expertise to help companies that are looking to scale and grow, but not yet ready to hire someone with my expertise full time. So we come in and fill in the gaps and help them grow, and also recommend additional, talent that might support the team as they expand. So I get so much joy from inserting myself into these different teams and companies and having an opportunity to watch them grow and really fill in the gap.
And so when you do that, though, in what capacity, right? It's branding and marketing. So talk a little bit about like the kind of companies that you work with and why they would need that gap filled versus hiring internally?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to overhead and budget sometimes. And also, it's a big risk for a company to hire someone at the C-suite level on a full-time basis. So you have an opportunity with a consulting firm to assume a short-term contract with a consulting firm or agency and have them come in and fill in the gaps that you may need. And those gaps now are, can be many things. We typically function in the marketing and branding space and operations. So what does that mean? Essentially, I'm functioning as a fractional CMO. So helping the team in place and oftentimes working alongside a CMO build out their team. Because today there's so many channels to marketing. For example, of course, there's public relations that we know in the traditional sense, but now there's digital marketing. That includes everything from buying ads to social media strategy, creating content, and it's so broad. Other things that are included under the umbrella of marketing can be partnerships, whether that's with another corporate brand to help hyper grow, a word I stole from you,
Right.
your business model, or celebrity partnerships, knowing how to negotiate that. You're a new brand or a legacy brand, a heritage brand, and you want to spice things up and garner some new energy to really affect your bottom line, and you want to partner with a celebrity. How do I go about finding that celebrity talent? How do I negotiate the deal? Who are the players? What's a fair rate? Where do I even start? And sometimes there are brands who've been around for 20 years that, don't know how to proceed in this capacity. And there are startups that have a great vision, but obviously need some support in moving along in those spaces. And when you're a new company or even a heritage brand that's trying to recover, new team has or investment group has invested in the business, you just don't have the resources to hire all the people you need on the team at once. Someone to run sales and merchandising, someone to run, brand partnerships, marketing, legal, all of these things. So you do the best with what you have, and having a fractional CMO or fractional operations executive really supports your growth strategy.
So when typically do people hire you, like in their growth? Like, is it
Growth.
like startups, or like they have, let's focus on the startup because that's what most of the audience is here,
Yeah,
female
yeah,
founders and stuff like that. So when would
right.
they do that? It's like not from inception, right? It's like they have an MVP out, like, because they have to be able to afford you too. I can, I know you're very expensive, as you should be. So.
Well, I've been around for decades. If we're talking to startups, I think it's important to understand that there are individuals who have worked at wonderful companies and garnered experience at every level that you can tap into and have them partner in a fractional capacity to help you grow your business. My firm, we typically get our clients from private equity firms or venture capital firms who have made an investment in a company and want to short the investment. You have a founder with a great idea. They've raised, some investment from typically a VC, if it's a startup, a venture capital firm, and now they need help operating the business. And there's but so much they can do. Where do they start? And it's a very common scenario. And those are a lot of the companies that we work with. Or as I mentioned, a heritage brand. The brand's been around for 25 years. It's kind of been, they have a great brand recognition, brand name. They have a community, but they're not achieving or performing at their highest level. So again, they garner investment and find us. That being said, I feel that there are individuals who have worked at a company, garnered experience, whether it's in marketing, sales and merchandising, or some area of growth, and they now want to consult and work in a fractional capacity with a few brands to try what they want to do. I've been doing this for my firm. I founded it in 2010, and I'm not the same executive today that I was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a wonderful solution for a lot of companies. I know what it feels like to be a founder starting out and just feeling very stretched. Like, I have resources, great, I've gotten some investment, or have no investment, but I need help and I don't have the resources to hire someone full time and it's too risky because what if they're the wrong person? Well, if you're working with a consulting firm or an agency, they have a roster of brands and clients that they've demonstrated an expertise with in a particular category that aligns with whatever your category is. And so you have a little bit of assurance, not a little bit, quite a bit of assurance that this is probably going to work out. And you typically find those firms from media stories that they've been able to confirm or referrals from friends, advisors, investors.
Right. Back to, what you were saying, like you started the company in 2010. Before that, you were working inside other companies. What was that decision like? Why did you decide to go on your own? Because it's very scary. A lot of people who are listening to this are contemplating that move and, they don't know what's, how to like pull that trigger.
I have a lot of advice for folks who are contemplating that move and want to pull the trigger.
However, I love it.
Yeah, I though don't have that brave story.
Yeah.
I left my job. I didn't want to work there anymore. I needed a break. I wanted to take a hiatus. I was feeling burnt out.
Yeah.
And when I left, folks started calling me and asking, where are you? Meaning brands, colleagues. I've been in the industry now for 15 years, performing at the highest level, meaning I'd worked in-house at Louis Vuitton, worked in-house at Bottega Veneta. I had worked for 2 global consulting firms, the last global vice president of a consulting firm, working with hundreds of brands. And so folks in the industry knew me, in and around the industry knew me, and wanted to know what I was up to. So the business fell into my lap, and I very much didn't want to do it because I loved the comfort of a job. I thought about it, and my friends reminded me, when you started in this industry, when you left investment banking and moved into the fashion and consumer space, you really wanted to eventually build your own firm, something I had forgotten.
Yeah.
for over 10 years.
Good
and
friends,
I was
right?
And my friends called folks and said, listen, my friend is amazing. I think you should work with her. And I'm like, the phone started ringing. And that was it. It was 100% my network that put me in business and truly have kept me in business to this day. 99% of my clients have come from referrals. And it's something that, I can speak to how that works. I realized I wasn't the person who was like, hi, I'm Umindi Frances, work with me. I tried it. 7 years in, I was like, the market's a little different. Let me try this. But I realized I sat with my CFO and he said, where have you gotten your business from the last 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I listed 7 people. And he said, when else have you gotten business? When I go to an event, when I show up at a conference, when I'm outside. And I realized those are things that I enjoy, networking and meeting people. And lo and behold, that's how I develop business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something everyone needs to hear, right? It's like, for some reason, networking has this like icky connotation. I don't know why. It's like business is business. Like, why would we want business? We want to grow our businesses. Why wouldn't we go out there, meet people that could potentially hire us,
And the thing is, I felt guilty for many years about how much I would focus on being out and networking. When I did work for companies, it was encouraged at all the brands that I worked for to go to galas, go to conferences, go to events to network. I was given a budget to do that.
Yeah.
And on top of that budget, I spent my own resources to show up in places and spaces because I inherently knew the value of it. And I really, got to a place of comfort with that and saw the strategy around how you build a solid consulting practice from those moments. And you'd be surprised where the referrals come from. Yeah. I mean, Bumble came to us for their go-to-market strategy, crisis management. That relationship came to me from a journalist that I had met, through a friend and had known Whitney Wolf, had gone to school with her and said, this is someone that I want you to work with. I didn't start working in tech. It was an editor from Vogue who had a friend who started a company and suggested, who had left Microsoft, had just graduated from Stanford School of Business and suggested that because they knew that I had a connection, a way to connect to consumers, that I work with them for their launch. And that's how I entered into the space of tech. I worked with the team that took Tommy Hilfiger from 43 million to 400 million on a tech initiative. And that's how I entered the space very organically.
So why, you mentioned earlier like that you felt guilty. Why would you feel guilty for going out and networking?
Because the amount of work that is required at my desk in office to get things done was immense until I learned later to balance. I used to say yes to practically everything because you don't know what is coming next. I never took on a client or business that I wasn't extremely passionate about, but it's very hard to say no to certain things. Very early on in my consulting practice, I realized that I stepped into my office and there was a mountain of mail on my desk and a mountain of files for administrative things. And I said, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm a very organized person. I come from a corporate environment. I'm going to have to scale back on the amount of business I take on so that my corporate finances, taxes, accounting, all of these things are in order, that I'm taking on new business in a methodical way, and that the staff that I have are happy and fulfilled, and I'm making time and space to hear them or establish some sort of process and infrastructure so that I can grow, because your people are important to your business.
Yeah.
But if you're always focusing on building, and serving clients, then you don't have time to do everything. You're human. So there was a balance, and I learned to say no in that moment.
How long do you think it took you to learn that? I mean, I think it's a constant
No.
constant learning. What?
Very early. Again, I've been an executive for a long time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, coming in 2010, it wasn't as if I just, been green on the scene. I had a long career investment banking, working for these corporations and then consulting. So it took me about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But still, 2.5 years is a long time.
Well, yeah, because, you want to, look, you don't have the budgets for networking, right? Nobody's handing you this. It's not a big company. They're not paying for your assistance. They're not doing all this stuff. So it all comes out of yours. So you have this balance of like, I'm going to take on all these new clients because I want to pay the bills and build a business. But like, it's too much for me to handle, even if I delegate out, right?
Right.
So it's
At
like
a certain point, you have to understand what the inflection point is and how many clients. I'm speaking to those who have consulting practices or want to. You have to understand at some point what the inflection point is. And it's kind of, I reached a point where I had a certain number of clients, and then, everyone doesn't stay with you forever. So there's a balance that you reach. But I want to backtrack and share something. I think that it's very important to note, if you are consulting, that networking is a very big part of your business, of developing the businesses that you represent. So they ought to include a budget for you to be out and about to represent them. And one great thing about representing brands in the fashion and beauty space, they inherently know that. So they included these budgets for me to do that and encouraged it. They had no problem on a monthly basis seeing a budget of, these are the amounts of journalists, retailers, or celebrity talent managers that I took out to dinner, engaged with. These are the conferences that I attended, because they know the way that you make business happen is by being in rooms with people to make deals. You make more deals in person with that personal touch versus an email or on the phone.
Right. That is so interesting. I think that a lot of consultants listening to this would be new news to them. You know what I mean?
Probably relieved. But then also you have to have the kind of client that understands that. Things happen over time. I think one of my strengths and longevity in building my consulting practice is the boundaries that I set. And my attorneys have been very, I can't thank them enough, integral in that. I've learned so much from the contract phase, the four walls of a contract and what things that you negotiate up front, so you don't have to talk about it later.
Yeah.
The things that might seem uncomfortable, that we don't feel comfortable asking for. You put that up front, you don't have to discuss it. And if you reach a point, and it does happen where the uncomfortable conversation might happen, you raise your hand and say, hey, it's in the contract. This was discussed, remember? And there's that. So having structure in your contractual terms and the way you operate and establishing that is very helpful in moving forward and progressing your business.
Well, I love that you hit on, of course, because, it's my pet peeve when people enter into these relationships and they don't have a contract, or they don't think it's worth it to spend money on lawyers for it, when it's like what you just said, like they act as a buffer in between you and the client, and there's plausible deniability
100%.
by asking for stuff. And if the other side says no or finds it offensive, you can always blame your lawyer.
Right. Which is very important, because for a long time I was doing my negotiations and so forth. And of course I still do, but at a certain point, I pass that on to my management team, my CFO, or my attorneys. It's very icky. And sometimes you don't have a choice. But when your business gets to a certain size, I focus on the core of the business, which is delivering results and why people have signed up to work with us. And I leave that sort of thing. And after that contract is signed and we've had the conversation, any hiccups, I pass it on to my management team and the attorney to discuss, because the buffer is really important.
Yeah. So you have them, for the most part, in fashion, retail, beauty, add kind of fund for you for, what do you call the fund actually?
What do you mean?
Like the extra, to go to conferences, et cetera. Is it a certain kind of fund?
It's not a fund. It's just like an expense.
Yeah.
Consider it this way, especially if you think about having a fractional employee.
Yeah.
When you have a CMO on staff, a marketing director, a sales director, they, have business meetings, or they have travel expenses. The company pays for that. Why should it be any different for your consultant that's managing these things for you?
Yeah. So, it's just like in, typical like business expenses, and then they're going to pay it.
Right.
It just should be agreed up front. I mean, I think usually when you're a consultant, yes, travel or anything like that, that's approved, but, going above beyond for like meals or conferences and stuff like that, I think that's
right.
So for people to know and understand that is
I think it's
fine to ask for and standard.
It's fine to ask for and standard. I don't negotiate like a budget up front per se for it. It's just something in our contractual agreement where there's an understanding that these things will happen at a certain monetary level. We will come and ask for advanced approval for things. For example, a conference may cost over $1,000, or travel or something like that. But many of my clients, they don't want to be contacted for a dinner with someone that I'm negotiating a deal with them for.
Exactly.
So you just say in your agreement that, expenses above this amount are to be approved by the company in advance, if that's what they prefer. But that's generally the idea. And, everyone decides what they want to do. I have clients who are like, you have a budget. We don't want to hear from you. This is what we expect you to spend it on whatever event. Host dinners for 30 people, bring together people that we can do business with. That's how they operate. And there's smaller firms, or firms, even older firms, that aren't accustomed to that. And they just want to know, above this dollar amount, just ask for advance approval. And it's a simple email, and it's a yes or no.
Yeah. So, talk about pricing, which is always something that is so sensitive for consultants in general. They always feel, kind of scared or, intimidated or icky asking for money, or, scared somebody's going to walk away. How do you approach that?
I've got some really hard, fast rules on that. I'm never afraid of somebody walking away.
Yes.
It's just a place. It is one of my strongest, you can't. And actually, it was my accountant very early on that said to me, first of all, about pricing, he said to me, if you charge somebody this or you charge them that, what's the difference in the service? And I said, nothing. He said, then that's what you charge everyone. You know, don't undervalue yourself. Now, my mother always said this growing up, eat little and live long. Listen, when you're starting out, you got to price things in a way so that you can have a business, you know? Right. However, at a certain level, you've made a name for yourself. Your rate is your rate. Yeah. And that's not something that I bend on. And so the way I price my services is I know, because I get job offers all the time, what my rate is in the market. Yeah. Right? What I should be getting paid if I were in-house full-time somewhere delivering the same level of service. And so in a fractional capacity, we just divide that up and I assume a monthly retainer. Yeah. And you can be a mid-level manager deciding you want to try your hand at consulting. You can be someone who's been a, executive vice president at a corporate entity and now looking to consult. And it's basically the same. Right. I love that. You're just like, it is what it is. If you don't like it, you can walk away. Right. Because people talk too, say, oh, this is what I get for. Yeah. But the important thing, what I realized is like, listen, I'd rather have, it's better to me to have less business and have time to focus on building your business in the right way than saying yes to everything and anyone. Once you have your baseline covered, now it's time to grow, to scale, gazelle your business. You ought to be prudent about who you work with. And so if you have the liberty and you're in a position where your business is now able to grow because your salary is covered, right? Now you're scaling, you should take the time and wait for good business, for people who can afford you, because you're able to do your best work. They appreciate you more and they just want to hustle and make it happen. It's a huge difference. Yeah, you're right. You're right. People that fight you for discounts fight you all day. For everything else. Yeah. Every little thing, and I think that that's fine, honestly, because growing a business can be a very obviously stressful, nervous scenario for many. If everyone at some point, even me, I have a business as well, but there's somebody who can deliver what you are able to afford in that moment. And then when you're ready, you grow. Yeah, exactly. There's always levels that you can continue to hire or, at a lower or more expensive. Wait, yeah. And so like, when did you learn that? Like, when was that lesson something like hard and fast rule that you took on? When did I learn that? I think very early on, once again. Yeah. Again, I had come from executive positions at 2 consulting firms prior, and I didn't plan on starting this business. So, the business was put in my lap. I was happy to, have my salary covered by a few companies. I don't think I was making, I was performing at my highest capacity day one of my business, but within a year I was. And I think that you want people to be happy. You want to, have great relationships and so forth, but it's not always that way. Sometimes you have tough clients. Yeah. And I just realized over time, not only from my experience, but those of my friends in the same space, that it was important for me to stand on this, and my values. So again, I'd say pretty early on. And what about like hiring yourself and internally? Like with that process, I hear so often that it should be, hire slow, fire fast, I like people who come on and say that it's like, not always that easy because you have to find people and, different projects and, when you have to pay payroll and all of that, it's like, so it could be so daunting to people. Like, how did you know who to hire? And yeah, I've got a cheat code though. You see, you have all the tricks. I know. You know what? But it's the companies that I work for. We're part of an ecosystem. So it's kind of the same group of people swimming around. And there's a lot of structure and tiers to these positions. You go from assistant to coordinator to manager, senior manager, director, so forth and so on. So I have at my fingertips a lot of relationships at every level and I see people socially. So I kind of know where the talent is. But, one of the strongest things that we do for our clients is help place talent. And as I've mentioned, I represent all these different categories, and it's very hard finding great people. Hiring fast, I'm afraid of. I've seen folks do it, and I just think that I've always been hired slow. And it's been stressful for me to go on interview 5 and what's happening and so forth. But some of the best companies in the world really take their time choosing the right talent. It's more than just your skill set. Who are you as a human being, a person, culturally? Are you kind? Are you a team player? Are you motivated? These are things that are important in finding talent. Sometimes when you're scaling at speed, you just have to hire fast and see what happens. And I tell people, listen, let's be honest. You don't know what you got unless they've been there for 90 days. You cannot be afraid. Oh, brings back memories. You cannot be afraid to let people go.
Yeah.
This is one of my biggest mistakes. I felt such shame about firing people.
It's not easy.
I, at one point, hired someone in a senior director role who did a great job for a time, but then I noticed a lot of flaws in their management skills. They very much wanted to do everything themselves and were not cultivating the team underneath them to grow, which left a lot of holes and gaps and ultimately resulted in us losing business, which is, a deeper story. But, I hope that the little I've shared you can get the essence of what happened. So instead of letting this person go and finding somebody better for the position, I covered the business by taking money out of my own resources and pumping it into the business to cover that period of time until we were able to recover business. No, let them go. Idiot. Well, I'll never do it again.
Oh my God. So many. So many tips and tricks. So what do you think for people listening in particular, if they have consulting firms, other than what we just heard, like what would you have done differently or prepared yourself for if you were starting all over again?
I don't know that I would have done anything differently. Yeah, what I can say is don't be afraid to stretch yourself. This is the best advice. See, I worked again in-house at fashion luxury brands. So it's very easy for folks to want to put me in that box. And at those fashion luxury brands, I worked in marketing and communications, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's folks that know that about me. So how is it that you can come into a business and help with channels of distribution? How can you help us hire staff? What do you know about fundraising? What do you know about venture capital, private equity? What do you know about these things? At the end of the day, I'm a business executive with 20 years of experience working side by side with executives, sitting and looking at 5-year plans, so forth and so on. I picked up a lot. And I have interests in art and design, in tech, in finance, in entertainment, in media. And those are things that I touched upon in some capacity in those roles. And what I created was a space where I can also thrive and touch upon that. Don't be afraid to create the business that you want.
Yeah, that's
Take
so true.
chances. You don't have to be in a box. And my industry was very much, you do this, you do that. I had a conversation with my friend this week who's a very successful celebrity stylist and had to push themselves to be seen as a creative director, meaning that you're coming on but for everyone listening, you're coming on a shoot or a campaign and you are overseeing the entire creative process. You're deciding who the photographer is, the space, the place. Are we doing this shoot in Tahiti? Is it happening in New York City? Is it on a plane? This sort of thing. And dealing with a lot of individuals who felt that isn't your lane. You know, this person has also started a successful brand. Who says that you can do that? Who says that you can't? You have to believe in you. You have one life. And, you know, Jennifer, just because you're an attorney doesn't mean that you can't build a successful consulting practice and build companies and brands. You've done this. You do it every day. And so you're the perfect example, JJ, of someone who's said, I'm not just an attorney, which is a phenomenal career that folks dream to have. But guess what? I can do this, and that too.
Yeah, it is funny. And it's like one of my like pet peeves is like everybody introduces me as an attorney. And it's like, I literally practice about 1/4 of my time.
Right. Or that you're an attorney in the music business or entertainment, when you advise on brands, fashion, beauty, you know, everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's even a different role, right?
Right.
But yeah, I totally agree. That is like
amazing. And that's the joy of growing and business. Like that's why I'm here, you know, 14 years later, because there's no ceiling on what I do. Listen, if I feel like I have an interest and affinity and I'm meeting with a CEO or someone in the C-suite that gets me and we get each other, we're like, let's build this thing. Let's do it. And it's such great joy to have met so many wonderful people that have given me the opportunity to partner with them on their journey and lend my passion to what they're doing.
Amazing. All right. So we've heard all the good advice. We've heard all of your tips and tricks. What is the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh man, the worst piece of advice. I should have thought about it. Yeah. The worst piece of advice I've ever received was to give up on something, you know? And it's just not something that I do. If I am committed to an idea and I feel it in my chest that this is something that can be brought to fruition, I'm going to try to find a way to make it happen. You got to know when to fold them. You have to know when to hold them. But there are times when I am very adamant about my vision and what I believe I can achieve. And the worst bit of advice was to give up.
Well, yeah, because you were following your intuition, right? That's like the key.
And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of this wisdom you've imparted here today. If people want to find you or hire you, how can they do that?
Sure. We can be found on Instagram at UFCGworldwide.com. Wait, UFCG Worldwide on Instagram. Website is UFCGworldwide.com. And I'm Umindi 360, like Anderson Cooper 360 on Instagram. Just send us a DM.
He's got nothing on you on your 360.
I'm such a fan of Anderson.
Love it. Maybe you guys will do a show together one day.
I know. Good idea.
Yeah. Thank you so much to everyone listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.